So we have a pretty heavy, important, exciting topic for today. I am Lashanti Ife, the mother, and we have with us.
Maya, I'm Maya. I am Maya Ma'at, and I am the
Hey,
daughter.
Jovi.
And we have drum roll.
Big Kaya. I'm kidding.
Kaya.
Big Kaya.
Not the little one.
Not the little one. Yeah. And
Okay.
I'm the baby. Not the
Yeah.
baby, but the baby. But not the baby though, at the same time.
Okay. Okay. So this topic came to us kind of out of a suggestion. One of my good sister friends was asking a question about, made a suggestion and posed a question for another of our episodes. And she says, so what is one of the things that you think keeps you guys grounded? Um, and so, Maya and I were talking about it for a little bit, and we settled on the importance of intuition, like the things that in the built in, as Maya calls it, the superpower, just a very natural knowing that we all actually share. Women to a certain degree, and I mean women especially, and men to a certain degree as well. And interestingly enough, while this is a very natural phenomenon, a very reliable source of knowing, right? However, we aren't given it the due, the attention, the conversation, the development in our lives in regards to cultivating this knowing. And so it's important that I'm just grateful we're having this conversation, number one. And two, that we can talk about this publicly in a very casual way about this inner knowing that is powerful, that is reliable, that is accurate. And, we're going to talk about the different types of intuition. We're going to talk about experiences of intuition. We're going to talk about the falsehoods of such and how to distinguish what is intuition and what is not.
What-
Yes, Maya.
That's a big one for me. I'm like,
Yeah.
what intuition is versus anxiety, because I'm like, okay, is that my intuition or is that me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is
Mm.
the very thing that distinguishes that?
You bring up a good point. You bring up a good point. And when we're talking about anxiety, we may also be moving into we have to separate anxiety and look at, or isolating anxiety and look at, is this a feeling coming from the body, right? Solely just the body, or is this a feeling attached to a thought, which is more of an emotion? Is this a feeling attached to the thought, the mind, which is an emotion, or is this a feeling attached to the spirit, which is going to be intuitive and also instinctual? So there's a difference, but yeah, we'll get into that. So, where do you guys want to start?
Hmm. Let's start by thinking, just kind of sharing our own, I guess, journey with intuition, our own intuitions, maybe. Like how strong we feel ours are, how it helps us. I think maybe we can start there.
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. Well, um, feel like I've always had a really, really strong intuition, but I feel like that's everybody. Um, and it was but I had a really hard time between for that's why I said that first thing for me, like deciding between anxiety and intuition, because I'll just have a feeling or have a thought, and I'll be
Mhm.
like, that came out of nowhere. Was that me just being a worry wart, or is it something I really need to, like, hone into? But there was something that you told me one time, and you were like, the more that you listen to your intuition, the more louder it will get, and the more obvious it'll get that that was intuition. So I just started listening regardless. So if I'm driving, take a left right now because there might be a car crash. I'm gonna take that left regardless. Like, even if it was anxiety, I'm just gonna listen. Like, either way, I'm either,
Yes.
you know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, and it's just anxiety, I'm listening. So I feel like after I just kept going, kept listening, eventually I was able to like discern between, all right, this is just me being a worry wart, or okay, this is me listening and like I said, to this superpower. And then once that happened more often, and I'm like, okay, like I'm actually able to feel in my body when something's right, or feel in my body when something's wrong, or I'll just have a thought. And like I said to you, like that's actually a superpower. So I got really excited. I was like, okay, how do we maximize this? How do we
Uh-huh.
this all the time? And how, because I like to problem solve, I like to be on point with things. So that's when I just started to meditate more
Mhm.
and self more. It has a lot to do with confidence, and I can see it's like my self-confidence grew, my intuition grew, my inner knowing grew, my ears grew, things like that. And so I feel like I'm in a really good place with my intuition now. I feel like it can be strengthened some more, but I'm happy with it.
You said a lot. You made a lot of really good points. I want to go dive a little bit more into feeling, and which is a type of intuition, and emotion, because we talked about that a little bit. And so feeling is a type of intuition that and Kaya's got this one. She has had this one since she was very young. But the feeling is sensations that we have in our body, right? And not necessarily emotional, though. It's not necessarily joy or anger or elation or fear or whatever that is. Those emotions are, because emotions are attached to a thought, and thoughts are come from our beliefs about a particular situation, whether that belief is true or not. So the emotion is just a response to what we think about the stimuli that is in front of us, or the experience that is in front of us, whether it be from conditioning, whether it be from any past experiences we've had, so on and so forth. The emotion is now feeling attached to a thought. Your intuitive feeling is feeling attached directly to spirit. And so it's just a body resonance that doesn't have a thought attached to it. You could be somewhere and a feeling just sweep across you, and you're like, wait a minute, what was that? Where did that come from? Why am I feeling this ease, this breezy, easy, breezy feeling in the middle of the grocery store? There must be something I need to pay attention to. Why am I feeling this um, pit in my stomach for no apparent reason? There's something I need to listen to.
Really,
That is an intuitive spec. Go ahead.
when you go on a date with somebody and you feel butterflies, that's
Girl, girl.
Well, I don't know, because butterflies would mean that what, you're attracted, possibly you're nervous, possibly. What does that mean?
that's your it's been a general consensus, me on TikTok, that your butterfly,
Not TikTok. Go ahead.
like you're not having a good reaction. Like your body is like, it's like okay, this is not a safe
There's
space.
some nerves. There's some nerves.
Butterflies mean that?
What I mean, we gotta think, what is butterflies? What do butterflies feel like? It's typically when your stomach starts to get tight, right?
I
When
thought
you're
butterflies was a good
else
feeling.
tight. Did your stomach get tight when you hang out with your friends? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when else do we feel butterflies? In that sense where it gets tight. I think that's
So you're saying is the butterflies is a representation of a low grade nervousness then?
that you may not be body is signaling that we're not safe here. And a lot of people are starting to listen to that, like, hey, that's actually an intuitive feeling, because later on down the line you realize, okay, now we're all shifting to let's find people that make us feel calm. Like in the beginning, like it's just calm. Like
Right, right. Or what if, I'm going to challenge that a little bit, because you definitely want to make sure that there's a safe space. However, what if this person or this event or this opportunity creates butterflies? There's a nervousness just because you haven't done it before, because it's forcing you to stretch.
It's new.
It's
It's
new.
and uncomfortable isn't always a bad thing.
Thank you. Good point. Good point. Uncomfortable is not a Maya, do you have your mic on?
No.
Oh, okay, because there's your sound is going in and out. Just letting you know if you want to grab a mic or something. So, so yeah, it is. It's moments where we can't hear you. So no.
Work. Remember, I had to choose between video or mic.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So we worked that out before. We'll just make sure we pause so we can hear you. So that's a good point. Like sometimes we're being asked to stretch and grow and meet the challenge in the moment. And so those butterflies can be the response to that. I think there's still a deeper knowing you can get. Hey, Tanisha. Hey, Vanessa. There's a deeper knowing that you can, if you're still, and this is why cultivating stillness is really, really important. So we can sort through all of the intuitive knowings and experiences that we have throughout a day, throughout a situation. When we cultivate stillness, and we're able to discern a lot easier about that. I want to say something about Kaya, and I don't know if our viewers can relate to this. When she was younger, I noticed that she would complain about having like a headache or a stomach ache, just randomly, right? And I'm like, okay, maybe she just had a long day or she's not feeling well. And then I started to think, like, what's causing the headache or the stomach ache? And when you're a mom, you're trying to figure out, like, did she eat something? Is she get coming down with the cold? Is she sick? Whatever. And I started to, after like investigating, reflecting on the days prior and that day, realizing that, oh, wait a minute, this isn't physical at all. Her body has a language, it speaks, and it reflects what she's feeling. And she's not one that talks a whole lot, so it will come through her body. And I was like, wow, she has an ability to intuit through the sensations of her body. And have you had any experiences with that since then, that you're somewhere and you notice, like, okay, I have a feeling in my stomach or a feeling in my heart or my head? Have you been paying attention to that?
Yeah, I definitely still experience those things
Hey, Teresa.
up until up until this day. Over the years, I don't feel like it's ever really went away. Now,
It won't go away. Do you listen?
do I I was about to say, now, do I pay attention to what's going on in the moment to try to figure out what is necessarily trying to tell me? No.
Why do you think that is?
Because I guess I just assume, because we also just kind of said that I'm not very vocal, and I do just already just keep a lot in. So I feel like majority of the time I'm just kind of assuming that it's just anxiety and stress. So I kind of just don't.
So, but do you want to know what's causing the anxiety and stress?
I know.
Okay.
Life, baby. I'm sure there can be, like, yeah. Aside from that, though, there may be other things, there may be, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure there are other things, and then I don't know, sometimes I feel like I feel when other people are going through things.
Oh, you're
And I've never really,
empath.
I've never really talked about this, but, like, especially if, for instance, I have a coworker at work that was
In
talking.
the viewership, any empaths out there, fellow empaths? Go ahead, Kaya.
Yeah, she was telling me about, how she wasn't feeling well, and how just, like, her family has a history of, like heart attacks, and later that day or the next day, like, I just felt a heaviness in my heart, and I just kind of felt that around her, or just, like, in general, and it just kind of made me just feel, I do feel like I can notice those ones, but aside from that, or just assuming that it's just everyday stress and anxiety, then no, I don't necessarily pay attention to what else it could be.
I was going to go ahead, Maya.
say like that is literally like another level of intuition, like another layer of it. You're not just intuiting for yourself, but you're intuiting your environment, which should make you, after today, kind of look at your sensations more because they might not even be yours. Yeah, your coworker told you about that heart problem, but there may be people that you come into contact with often that don't really tell you, and you're feeling stuff that's not even yours. And so now anxiety and so much stress, and it's not even yours. Like you're just feeling other people's stuff. So, protect your space.
Right, but so, like, at the other time, I mean, at the same time, how do I, because I feel like that's just a lot. Like, how can I, me feeling for myself and other people, like, it's too much sometimes.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
can I
yes.
decrease,
Daily
or just have the feelings not be so
Intense.
intense, because
Over.
they're
Hmm.
intense
Hmm.
sometimes, and I don't really be knowing what to do about it. I just kind of just go along with the day. And
What were you gonna say, Maya? You want to respond to that?
couple, because I know you can dive into this a little bit more, so that's why I'm just gonna give my little sprinkle. A somatic therapist type of view, I would say definitely movement. Emotions get stuck. They literally do. They get stuck in the fascia and the muscles.
stretching, I need to stretch.
Stretching, dance, like movement. So you need to stretch too, but like
Yeah.
stretching, emotion, there's actually like a sheet of where emotions are stored in the body. So if there's a specific one that you're feeling, stretch that in the mornings, at nights. Definitely meditating, getting still. I think cleansing as well in whatever way that you cleanse.
It
Um,
can be Tanisha. Super
like
heavy.
important
Yeah,
for
and we're going to highlight those comments too because they're bringing up some very good points. But our resident yogi doula here is giving us some tips about how to move those things, clear those things, strengthen the body, because the resonance is actually in the body with those emotions and things that are passing, that are being held from other spaces and your own. And so go ahead, Maya. Go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. The last part was just cleansing, making it a day. Especially now, I didn't know this about you that you pick up on other people. You got to cleanse daily. That way, if you're cleansing daily, you're more likely only going to feel your stuff heavily. And then you can know, okay, this is me. You know? Does that make sense?
No,
Um,
Yeah.
perfect sense. I think I've always felt like, um, in terms of and having being empathic, you still have a choice. That's I'm a firm believer in choice. And getting to the point where you can fine tune things enough where you can be available and be open, or you can adjust how open you are. And that does take a lot of practice. I think very being grounded in your body, the stretching, the cultivating inner silence, the when you know that you have to cultivate an inner peace for yourself so you can regulate what comes in, how much of it, and your own stuff as well. You know.
I do find it interesting too, because, I don't see myself to be like super social or just like super friendly, but people do seem to, strangers too, just be telling me they life problems. And
Mhm.
it's like, and I be feeling for strangers too. So it's like, okay, yeah, I don't know, but I am also like, yeah, I don't express, but I am also very, what's the term? I'm still very, what's the term? Uh,
What?
give us
What's the?
I'm not,
You're still what?
I, like,
Like,
very emotionally, or very, like, I'm very still in tune with feelings, but I
right,
don't
you don't
express them.
express a lot, and I think that in and of itself can be
is
of assistance. You have to let it flow. Like one thing, you just don't want things to be stuck. You have to let it in. If it comes in, you got to let it out.
yeah.
Omiyale says bathing in sea salt daily or periodically may also help. Absolutely.
Yeah, someone
Absolutely. Great way to
comment
cleanse.
like how to do protection. Someone said protection is important, but how? I think
Exactly.
that's a great idea.
The
I feel
sea
like
salt.
sure, and maybe mom, you can touch on this a little bit more. But I definitely think it depends on your culture. I know some people do use holy water, some people smudge, whether that be with incense, Palo Santo, or sage. Salt baths are really good
Yeah.
regardless. Like literally, there's so many different cleanses. I would
That's the different
suggest just,
thing. Mhm.
yeah, research and finding what resonates with you for protection and cleansing.
Right.
Praying.
Especially for your tradition, for your whatever angle you come from. Efun is good on the soles of your feet, behind your ear, to keep you grounded. And who's this? Well, we're gonna get my brother Tunji's comment in here in just a second. So he's talking about cleansing and being protected. So that the protection piece is really important, because like we were saying, you need to be able to gauge and create a filter. That's really important. No one is here to just be run over by all of the things, so it is important. Let's see what empathic gifts are tricky. I don't feel other people's energy so intensely at the onset, but I am a spiritual sponge and absorb other people's energies. It is subtle and builds up over time, but if intense, it may hit hard. I was told a couple of years ago to walk in nature. Yes. For 2p and alone to cleanse. Absolutely. Nature is really the elixir for everything. Sitting in nature, sitting by, if you don't have bodies of water, if you do, sitting by the river, sitting by the ocean, sitting in the greenery, putting your feet in the earth. Putting your feet in the earth and grounding, just being in, he said 20 minutes alone daily. Absolutely. 20 minutes alone daily. One of my go-tos, which is not very, very popular for the, I'm going to say it's just not, people are usually like, I don't really want to do that. I don't really know how. But one of my go-tos is meditation. Like, just, I'll listen 30, 40 minutes a day on a regular, sitting in silence and being still in devotion and just and feeling and beingness and resonating with the divine is just, how I stay cleansed and protected. That can also be prayer and affirmations within that time of meditation as well. Yes. What are you gonna say?
think I'm not gonna say scared, but I think I'm a bit hesitant to meditate, only because, like you said, you're sitting in stillness and quiet, and I feel like that's when even more, I'm thinking about everything. So I feel like it's gonna be hard for me to really find calmness in meditation, if that
Mhm.
makes sense, because
Mhm. It's
everything is already internal. So
yeah. It's something that you have to develop over time. It is a practice and a devotion. Now, some people, I can do that easily, just going into trance space or going into meditative space and just zeroing out without anything else. Some people really enjoy moving into meditation space through dance, through yoga, through Tai Chi, through, right.
Meditate. So I just want to give like a general definition of meditating. It literally just means to be present. So you
Yeah.
can meditate while you're washing dishes. It's not that your mind is clear, it's just that you're focusing on what's in front of you. So okay, grabbing the sponge, moving the sponge, here's water. It's just being present. And that's like that, instead of thinking, oh, there's going to be nothing on my brain, just focus on being present. um and then
you
slowly
feel me, Tanisha?
and then slowly you can get into.
Get Kyra too much alike.
I know, it's like, but it's also hard for me to focus on one thing. Y'all, my brain is just, it's
And
hard.
that's why that's especially why you need to cultivate some practice.
That's
How
You
about
really do.
my suggestion? Before you sit down and meditate, everything that's on your mind, journal it first. Like whatever is on your mind.
Girl, I'm gonna be writing for hours. I ain't gonna get to the meditation, baby.
Start
I'm gonna fall
somewhere.
asleep writing.
Listen,
Okay, you're right.
I
I
used to
know.
buy Kaya a journal like what twice a year. Like, here, Kaya, because listen, like I said in
Mom,
the last
mine too.
podcast, Kaya's thoughts are just really deep and man, just real insightful. Like, she really sees a lot into things. And I was like, oh yeah, you, my dear, need to get
The few times that I have journaled, like I did like it. It does feel nice, like writing things out because I don't vocalize it, but it just takes
What
forever.
instead of trying to clear something, you pick one thing to meditate on. So let's say there's something that's bothering you, maybe go into it and like figure it out and then let it go. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if there's one thing, take that thought it. Or one thing that I started with when it was hard for me to quiet my brain for meditation, I would go in with an affirmation. So I just say that word over and over, that sentence over and over and over and over and over again in my head. So your head's too busy. You can't have four thoughts at one time, but you're
Right.
sitting, and it literally takes a long to get to silence. But
Silence, yeah.
there and
So,
then that's
so what Maya is talking about is giving your mind something to focus on and play with, because it's gonna do its thing. It's gonna
Right.
do its thing, and it doesn't mean you're more successful or less successful if your mind is busy. It just, the mind is a machine. It does what it does. So you give it something to chew on, and there's many things that you can do for that. So it sounds like we've shifted from, or what we're naturally talking about, like, how do we manage the
being
intuition, being a feeler, because that can be intense, that can be quite intense for the body. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Whenever Maya, were you about to say something?
go to your question first because I was just gonna go a little bit somewhere else.
Okay. Is deja vu kind of in a way as a form of intuition?
Yeah.
Because I mean, granted, you don't know until you're in the moment that you've already been there or that you knew that this was going to happen. But I do feel like when it comes to intuition, that's where it shows up the most for me. I feel like I have a lot of deja vu moments.
Girl.
And the empathy.
Any viewers want to comment on that? So, which then means that, we getting into something deeper than intuition here. Which then means that you on a regular are tapped into the creative space, the space that goes before you to create the things, the moments that you end up experiencing. The things that happen are, well, Tanisha says, I felt it. So those things, anything we're experiencing in the physical, has already been cultivated and arranged energetically. And so that means that you are tapped in, you are present, you are seeing into those spaces ahead of the time. You going forward, going backward, that's a whole nother capacity, if you will.
Okay.
That's so
Just curious.
Cancer rising and you've got all these like and like you're super 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 intuitive like and like we're
But it's
just
crazy. I never really thought about it like that though. I didn't think I was just like a super intuitive person.
but it's crazy
So,
like
what you say, Maya?
crazy we didn't even know until today like this is
No. I knew. I just knew that she just wasn't talking about it, or wasn't necessarily tapped in consciously.
yeah
And that's what we're talking about right now with intuition. Like, everybody has this capacity that is operating, it just, are we aware of it, or are we not? That's the piece. Are we relying on it? Do we respect it? Do we honor it? Can we rely on it, or are we not?
so
So
let me
go ahead.
for viewers just to make it pretty concrete what is intuition and how does it benefit us to hone into it every day what does it look like daily and how does like what would give someone a reason to want to fine tune their intuition.
So before we go there, let's talk about the different types of intuition.
Okay.
So we were talking about the feelings, right? Another very common intuitive ability, or where we have our intuitive knowledge and knowings that come from, is our dreams. Dreaming is I listen.
Yeah, yours be to the T.
No.
To the T.
I put money on my dreams.
No, for real.
That is very much one of the things that comes a lot naturally for a lot of us. We have dreams, and it gives us insight that we can rely on. The other is what we call claircognizant, and it's just claircognizant, right? That's it, right? And it's just a knowing, like just
You
a
just know.
knowing.
That's
It
what
just the information just drops in, and you just know a thing.
Is that a
Um,
feeling though? Like you
no,
feel
you're
so it's
not
just
feeling it in your body. It's just direct information
okay.
about a situation, about a person, about an event, about something coming up. It's like, oh, I don't know how I know that, but I know.
Okay.
Um, Someone said earlier about having gotten comfortable enough with their knowing that they don't question it, and they also don't look for proof. Is that proof is overrated. Looking for proof will slow you down. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you know, and it's okay to be comfortable with
Knowing.
knowing. And I think that's the part where Maya, you made a video about why does society just be playing in our face and we don't acknowledge the beauty of just knowing a thing.
it's
um Go ahead.
I said it's by design
Yeah.
because if we all tapped into that, things would be very different on a larger scale. Um, and it just starts with making us question ourselves at young ages, making us not believe in ourselves, making us not trust ourselves for validation outside of ourselves. And
Yes, indeed.
is like taking your power back. And realizing that that's what it is. And power doesn't need a reason or a why or a but how.
And
And so
even shows too. I don't know if y'all be seeing the stuff like these shows be predicting things like so whoever are the creator of these shows,
They were intuitive.
they were intuitive, yeah. And it
right.
happens years later and they're like, this show literally had this exact scene in it and it just be crazy.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Maya, you were saying that this is something we're born with. It's innate. It's innate. However, there isn't an awareness and any effort to cultivate this for all of humanity at jump. Like, we really should be having some intuitive, development, cultivation in school. Like, why are we not? Well, we, like you said, we know the whys, but it's not a mystery, right? I think we have a heart, we have a brain, we have intuition. Like, it's really that simple. This isn't no hokey pokey woo stuff. It just is a matter of fact. And one that is largely sidestepped, because if we're working from our knowing, from our natural knowing, we can't be manipulated. We can't be manipulated. We can't be exploited. There's less of that going on, whether it be by corporations, whether it be by whomever, whatever. But, we won't be. Maya, what is that? I
That
just,
is
I really think that as when you know better, you do better, right? So
Mhm.
as we're starting to, raising our children, and for those of us who have gotten a little older and we have grandchildren, and we can help them to, right. Nay said, Maya ready to go in. Absolutely. Um, we can help them at very early stages develop this knowing and this understanding, that is innate, that is a part of our design. It's a part of our design. Yes.
Those moments that I know we all have when you thought you knew something and you didn't listen, and then later you're like, ah, I had a feeling like something told me to do this.
mm,
You didn't listen, like, and that happens too often. So we're like, oh, well, that's why this is important because I know we have those feelings.
Yes. Yes.
Keys all the time. Something told me to put my keys on the dresser, and I didn't. And
yeah. It is always those moments that be happening. Something told me to do this and I just didn't listen.
Right. And it's quiet. It's quiet. It's a
Yeah.
quiet leaning, or, a nudge in a certain direction. And through trial and error, you realize I need to listen to that quiet voice. I need to listen. I take a couple of extra seconds to put the keys where you need to put the keys, whatever, whatever. Um, there may be dreams that you have and you need to make an adjustment in the next day, whatever you're going to do, so you can avoid this, that, and the third, or you can take advantage of a new opportunity. Yes.
Dream part, because I just had an intuitive dream, but it was like something so simple. But like I was saying, I've been like cultivating on purpose. So I breastfeed and I nurse and I pump. And I had a dream 4 days ago that I was on the road. I was traveling back from Myrtle Beach, which I did go to Myrtle Beach, and I had to buy another pump because I left my pump at home. So I wake up and I'm like, okay, like let me make sure that I bring my pump. So I bring my pump and now I'm ready to use it on the way and it just doesn't work. So I'm like, bro, I actually do need to buy a pump. And I had a dream that I could like sidestep it somehow, some way, and still got to buy another pump. So, but I mean, I did try to listen, but if my intuition was maybe more, maybe I would have intuited that it was broken. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Right. But way. So
Say it again, Maya.
I said, but I did know that either way I was gonna have to buy another pump.
You were prepared for that part.
As a matter of fact, you probably should have just bought the pump when you were leaving.
Before you left.
What did you say?
I said, now I know.
Exactly. Listening to the intuition can be so precise, especially with dreams. They can be so precise. I remember there was a time I went through, because dreams can be very symbolic, right? And discerning whether if this is symbolism or if this is exact, if this is literal. And so I remember going through some of this discerning or trying to figure out which is which. And now I'm at the point where if it's some day-to-day stuff, it's literal. It is actually literal. And, again, this is something that we just want to have more just normal conversations. As you see it, we're having right here, and Kaya's expressing some things and saying some things and understanding the importance of some things about the utilization of her own intuition and clearing and cleansing. And her thoughts are shared by many people. I have these things, I feel these things, I just kind of move through life without really acknowledging them. But I want to. I want to do more of that. What's another, so we talked about feeling, we talked about knowing. The other is hearing. And that's actually hearing the direction, right? Sometimes it's audible, hearing the direction of something or from something. And a lot of people will say this is like the voice of the divine that's giving some instruction on something. Some people say the voice of an ancestor may speak and say, hey, do this, do that, move here, move there. I know, for me personally, that part I have, I'm familiar with, but I also feel like I get a lot of hearing things that just isn't very relevant or useful. Like one time, kid you not, tapped into this phone conversation that someone was having. I was in a whole nother country and I'm just in their phone conversation. And I'm like, I don't even, why? Why am I here? What is it? I don't want to know. Let's talk about that with intuition. Knowing things that you don't really want to know. That you don't really want to know. So is it, I usually talk to people that say, like, what am I doing with why do I need this information? I say, when you're highly intuitive, you're just going to hear. That's like if you're walking by a group of people in a grocery store and they're talking, you can just overhear it because you can hear. So if you're intuitive, and whatever that means in whichever different ways, you're going to hear, see, pick up on information that might not be useful or relevant to you, but simply because you can see, hear, in that way. So some of it is I remember one time I did get I had a dream, And I thought that it was important for me to tell the person about the dream. This was some years ago, and I called them and I told them. And I think that it wasn't even really anything that deep, but I think the content of it may have freaked them out. And that's when I learned, oh, this isn't for me to overstep and just immediately think that I'm supposed to tell people when I receive or when I hear, when I know something. Some people will say, God told me to tell you this. Just because they came across a piece of information, they sometimes we don't ask permission, right, to share that information or to feel if it's appropriate to convey a message. And that's one of the, the ethics, morals, and protocol around sharing a message. And you just ask somebody first, because you don't know if they really want to. That may not be what's. Just ask.
Who are you asking? You're asking the person in which
person.
So what are you asking them? Like, hey, I
had, there's something that, was that I received, that I heard, that I know. Are you open to hearing? Would you like to hear that?
Are you open to situations? Like, like if you have a dream about someone else's relationship, you might, and they're happy, you might want to text and be like, hey, like I had a dream about so and so. Do you want to hear? Like, it could be nothing, but I just want to run it by you. Is that okay? Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Good point, Maya. Yeah. And also distinguishing between, so if you're naturally intuitive, like I gave the example, you're walking in the store and you can just hear these things, right? You may be tempted to attribute everything you're hearing to being given some divine guidance, or that, God is telling you this, that, or whatever. And that may not always be the case. It's just you have the ability to see and hear, and these things are available in that space. So sometimes people will lead with that as if to say, I'm validating what I heard or what I saw for you, so you have to listen, when that may not be what that was, So there's some respect. Yes, Omiyale says propriety and permission is so important. It really, really is. It really is.
So, kind of just going off of what you just said, so basically you're saying too, like, well, I think this is kind of a given. Like some people that may be super intuitive, they may see that as, well, it is a superpower, but at the same time, some people abuse superpowers. So some people just take it as, like you said, oh, I know this, I'm telling you, you have to listen. So you do have those people that they're just kind of taking advantage of the fact that they're knowing things, and they're not really using it in a positive way. Like, right. Is there a difference in, I guess it just depends on like what you know, or what you're knowing, what information that you're spreading, who you're telling, just what the situation is. But when you know something and you are telling people with an ill intent, or just not with a, not telling them for a good purpose or a good cause, just because you feel like you're empowered, does that at all change? Like, can that impact or change?
You're asking a really good question. Really good question. There's two things we want to touch on with that. One, that speaks to what I said about having the ability to hear is just, it is what it is. We all have the capacity. Mm-hmm. Some of us have it developed to a larger degree than others. It's like, I can breathe, so can you. I have, you know what I'm saying? So having said that, there are people will use that based on the how they. Yes, yeah. Omiyale says some oversharing is definitely ego-based, but people will filter those messages through their integrity. They're going to, wherever they stand in that spectrum of integrity is going to be how they filter, share, and use that information. So each of us have to be discerning. we would hope that those of us who have a more heightened sense of intuition would develop the ethics and walk in with a certain sense of integrity. But this is humanity, and that isn't always the case. One other thing, real quick, Maya, and then I'm gonna let you talk. One other thing is that uh, differentiating between messages we've received, messages we think that other people need to know that isn't intuitively, received, and our thoughts and emotions can change a message, alter a message, add to, take away from a message. It can get really, really tricky and sticky, especially for people who move in this as a way of life. And so again, that's why I think it's really important for people to ask first, to have to get that permission before you step in someone's face and share. And then also, learning the difference between what your personal desires are, what your personal likes and dislikes are, what your personal convictions are, that could be clouding and attaching itself to any intuitive knowings that you have. Yes, Maya.
I was just gonna say that to the on the one other of the questions that you asked was like, will it take away from their intuitive gifts? The answer is
Yeah.
because like, it's just you can hear or you can't hear. Like if I can, like mom said, if I'm walking down the street and I hear someone talking about somebody, and I share that business with everyone that I know, that doesn't mean my hearing is gonna stop. It's not.
Right.
It's like mom said, everyone has the ability to grow this thing. So if I've grown it to this level, I've practiced, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to like decrease. There's not like, that's why I think we need to be taught these things early on so that
Yes.
be an ethics class. There needs to be a, hey, don't get in your ego because you're not the only person that can do this. Everyone
Right.
can stepped up, or you've some people are born with the heightened and some people work to heighten it, but either way, it doesn't make you better than the next person. And so there shouldn't be a high horse, which also comes with the moral compass, which is why people should be talking about this earlier. um because it's not something that can get taken away. It's something that can get used and abused and make people feel less about, it's just one of those things. Like people that
Yeah.
get money, people abuse money all the time. That doesn't
I
mean
was just
someone,
about to say that's they're not gonna get it. Yeah, just because you abuse the power doesn't mean that the power gets taken away.
Absolutely.
it's not getting taken.
Um, to your point, Maya, you said no one needs to think they're better than the other. And also a humbling part, and I think this for those of us that have developed, cultivate, and intuitives just in general, listen, and don't expect or don't think that. I just don't even understand how those who are intuitive and work in intuitive communities think that their stuff won't be seen and heard by others. Like we all see each other. We all do this thing. So, and it's a humbling thing for me too. Like I'm knowing that my, especially with my sisters and my brothers and community, that my life can be read easily. And so people who are intuitive and think that they or work in intuitive communities, and through a profession that relies on intuition, that their actions and their intentions are not seen and known, the things that they do are not seen and known, is just largely ignorant. And yeah, it just know that this is it's a normal, natural thing. So don't feel like you can hide in the community with what were you gonna say, Maya?
Oh, I was just that was just a facial expression.
Oh, okay. There isn't so it's a humbling piece. It's also a respect piece, being real about it. People, what, you can be shady if you want to, but we are all on this, we are all have the capacity to move in and out of these spaces of knowing. And your stuff is out there to be seen.
Um, I think it's important before we wrap, like before our time goes out, to kind of reel it into the everyday person that maybe hasn't really tapped into their intuition yet or would like to know how to, um, and kind of touch on that and like how just because there are people that are in intuitive communities, then there are also everyday people, not everyday,
Absolutely.
but like people that are listening and are like, hey, like that sounds interesting. I kind of have these feelings. Like, how can I hone in on that more? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can I teach how to listen to intuitions? Like, let's kind of get into that a little.
Okay. So, like we were talking with Kaya about listening, slowing down a bit to feel into your body, to acknowledge, to recognize. I think what did one of the ways that we can do that? Where was the comment? Yeah, Doshi said the journaling piece.
Mm-hmm.
You want to keep record of. I think that helps the brain, the mind to start to track these things,
You're,
bring yourself into your awareness of it. You want to, I journal all my dreams and have since I was in my late teens. And that way that has grown the strength of that over time, the relationship with that over time. So you want to study yourself, really is what you're doing. You're really studying yourself. So if you have a certain feeling, you're like, oh, I had this feeling. I'm not exactly sure what that is attached to. Let me write that down. Let me journal what was happening that day. And then you may notice a pattern. You'll be able to go back and look at these things that you've been feeling, that you knew, that you heard, or whatever, and see how the evidence of that has shown up for you. Those are ways that the documenting makes it concrete. It takes it out of uh, the immaterial and makes it concrete. What were we going to say, Maya?
oh, I was just moving. I,
It can make it concrete. I think that's a good place to start, because I would have said, if you meditate, if you do this, you da 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 da. And for beginners, that may feel a little intimidating, overwhelming, and they're just concept is like, listen, you may not even have time for all that, but you can simply write. You can simply write, study yourself. It's really exciting, actually. It can be absolutely fun to to just investigate and study how this intuitive faculty in you displays itself, how you tap in, how you become more aware of what that is. I wanted to say before we close out, go ahead.
add something to that.
Yes, please.
So, with I think another really, really important thing, especially in this day and age, is when we say slow down and silence. I think a big part of that is our phones. If you're on your phone the first thing when you wake up and you're on the phone first thing before you go to sleep, um, that was me. And then I decided to 1 hour no phone before waking up, 1 hour no phone before bed. And that's when my intuition, like 2 days later, 2 to 3 days later, my intuition started popping up because you're constantly receiving this information, but whether it's your thoughts, whether it's social media, your phone, that's there to distract you. So, like distractions. And then also, the last part, I just had an idea for when you have children, how to help them hone into their intuitions is to ask them a lot of times, like, what do you feel about this? What do you think about show you something instead of being like, of course, being like, oh, I love that. That's great. But like, what do you think about that? Like, how does that make you feel? Like, checking in with them while they're still open and still feeling and just validating their experiences a lot more. That way they don't have to grow up, learn to quiet things and learn to trust themselves. That's just my bit there.
Wonderful tip.
I love that. Yeah.
Yes. Um, Also, the talking, remember we talked about this, Maya, before. When your children wake up, asking them to share their dreams. What did you
Hmm.
dream about last night?
Hmm.
Talk to me about that. Because not only are dreams, foretelling, but they are also ways that we can become more aware of what we truly feel. about our experiences and the people in our lives. And there are solution-based things there. There are ways that you can work in your dreams to clear and heal things, and just being more conscious of that space can start at a very early age. So tell me, because listen, we've been going to sleep and living these vibrant lives since forever. And no one really, it's not until we get in our teens, maybe, do we start talking about our dreams, unless we have an adult or an aunt or somebody who's like, yeah, I have these dreams, and I listen to my dreams. And then we think about it like, wait a minute, I do too. But having some aware conversation about that will also tune your children and anyone inwardly to pay attention, oh, this is important, to pay attention. One of the first posts about this episode that we put up talked about men who love and who are raising girls and women, and the importance of also giving space to women's intuition and cultivating that. It is not that we need to have any qualifiers, but it is scientifically proven that women's intuition is a real thing. There's a part of our brain that we use that taps into this other space, as it concerns that realm of knowing. And so women's intuition is such an asset. Is such an asset to humanity, to the relationships, to business partnerships, to everything. It is so critically important. It can be the deciding factor between a failure or a victory. This information that is gleaned in an instant, or this dream that was had, or this, and making space for that and cultivating that and integrating that into family discussions, empowering your child to rely on that and develop that can be can save her life even, to listen. All the things that we teach about, what girls' discernment or women's discernment is largely intuitive. And so, men, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of cultivating that and encouraging that in your daughters, your nieces, your wives, your spouses, your whomever, and also gleaning and taking some relying on that wisdom for your business decisions, for whatever the case may be, purchases and so on and so forth. It's such an asset. There's power couples built off of the women's intuition and the man's practicality. It's power couples built off of that. So, you tap in. What are you gonna say, Maya? Kai?
Nothing. Just tap in.
I was
Tap
Tap
in.
in.
been talking about and that this is just for everyone to know, because it can help you, but everything that we've mentioned that will help you cultivate your intuition is in fact yoga. Yoga is not just poses, but it's also meditating, it's also journaling, it's also self-study. Self-study is a limb of yoga. So if you want to find what works for you, just Google 8 limbs of yoga and literally look and see what resonates with you. It could be journaling, it could be self study, it could be helping people. Like, there's a lot of different ways to bring the mind and the body together. And that's what is honing your intuition. And we just talked about all the different ways, and it is yoga. So,
I want to add to that too.
yeah.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong. When we talk about the honing in and making that connection strong with the spirit, the body, and the mind, right?
Mhm.
And so that is what yoga is doing, is connecting those three, correct? So they can operate together. They're integrated together. One last thing, because we don't want to forget one other type of intuition, is the seeing. is the seeing. And some people literally, this part, this, we can kind of say dreams fit in that, but literally in waking state, visions, deja vu. Some people think that they're, when you are, what's it called? When you're just sitting in your imagination is just running wild, and you are passively just viewing some things, and you think that's just a part of it's just material, and you're actually seeing some things that are going to happen, or tapping into a theme or a movement of energy in that moment as you are playing these visions out. So daydreaming. Thank you, Patrice. That was the word, daydreaming. There it is. Yes, daydreaming often is, now we'll say daydreaming can also be a distraction. The mind running, 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 running. So once we learn to cultivate, once we are, cultivating, being more aware, the daydreaming is also a way to, see the what?
Me and
We
Kaya
stretching.
I
we
can't.
over here.
we're over here stretching like
We
we're
over
not like that feeling all crooked up.
here. Girl, right.
Okay, thank you so much for everyone who joined us today and moving through this conversation about intuition. Just had an idea because I really wanted to get some more viewer experiences, and we weren't able to do that. I knew this was going to be kind of a heavy topic with a lot to discuss. So we may check in with some of you guys later, and share that with our audience, and individually, some of your experiences and tips, and insight on cultivating. Yes.
Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us again. We love, 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 love you. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, guys. Tap into that intuition.
Tap, tap in. Okay.